The stars had never felt closer, and yet Jace Mallory had never felt more alone. Suspended in the velvet black of space, the Oberon drifted silently above the planet Kepler 7X, its matte hull gleaming faintly under the twin suns. Jace sat in the forward observation bay, one gloved hand resting on the console, the other clutching a half-finished cup of recycled coffee. He wasn't drinking it for the taste. They had been in orbit for 12 hours, running every scan, every spectrum, every test they could think of. The signal was still coming from the surface, a slow, deliberate pulse that danced right on the edge of pattern recognition. Not quite a language. Not entirely noise. Something in between. Something watching them. Commander Mallory, a voice crackled through his comm. It was Lieutenant Han, back on the bridge. The science teams decoded another segment. You'll want to see this. Jace stood, stretched, and took one last glance at the blue-green curve of the planet below. Clouds swirled like ink dropped in water. Beautiful. Peaceful. Lying. He strode through the corridor, boots echoing in the silence, the hum of the ship's core vibrating faintly beneath his feet. He passed by crew members hunched over consoles, eyes hollowed by weeks of calculations and the weight of wonder. At the door to the bridge, he paused. Something about this mission had unsettled him from the start. Not fear exactly, but a pull in his chest he couldn't shake. As though he'd been here before. The screen was already displaying the decoded pattern as he entered. It was unmistakably a string of tones, symphonic in a haunting, minimalist way. Beneath it, the waveform danced in perfect symmetry, like a breath in reverse. It's a message, Dr. Kaito said quietly, adjusting her glasses. A greeting, we think. Or maybe an invitation. Jace nodded once. Prep the landing team. I'm going down. The ship's drop shuttle sliced into the atmosphere hours later, a sleek wedge cutting through dense cloud cover. The turbulence was minimal, almost as if the planet welcomed them. From the cockpit, Jace watched the terrain unfold, vast plateaus covered in bioluminescent moss, rivers that shimmered with iridescent silver, and massive rock formations twisted like petrified flame. The shuttle touched down on a rise overlooking a massive canyon. In the distance, what appeared to be stone spires jutted from the earth like broken teeth. Scans read no signs of civilization, but Jace knew better. Something had crafted that message. Something was waiting. The team moved cautiously, suited and armed but without aggression. Jace led them through the canyon floor, the air thick with strange, sweet aromas and the hum of unseen life. Every stone seemed to resonate subtly with each footfall. It wasn't natural. It was tuned. They set up a temporary base by dusk, lighting small perimeter lamps that cast long shadows on the walls. The rest of the crew retired to scan modules and rest stations, but Jace remained at the perimeter, staring out at the darkening sky. The stars here looked unfamiliar. Wrong almost. He took a breath, turned to return, and froze. She stood no more than 10 meters away. Tall, statuesque, her skin the color of twilight. A soft blue that seemed to shimmer slightly under the light, like heat rising from pavement. Her eyes were massive, silver-ringed, expressive. Her hair was braided tightly, decorated with metallic threads and stones that hummed faintly. She wore armor, if it could be called that, sleek, form-fitting, organic in design, adorned with glowing etchings that moved like living tattoos. She was smiling. Jace's hand hovered near his holster, but he didn't draw. Something about her presence stilled him. She made no move, offered no threat. Only that smile. Then she spoke. "You came," she said in flawless English, her voice lilting, almost melodic. "I had hoped you would." Jace didn't move. "Who are you?" She tilted her head, eyes scanning his face like she was reading more than just features. "I am Ilarion, this world's last guardian." The words hit like a thunderclap. Last guardian? She stepped closer. Jace didn't retreat. His heart hammered, adrenaline mixing with curiosity and an eerie sense of familiarity. She extended a hand, not as a threat, but an offering. "You're not what we expected," she said softly, her fingers brushing the air between them. "But you are exactly what we need." That was when everything changed. At her touch, Jace felt his mind fracture and expand. Visions, not his, poured into him. Vast cities of crystal and light, oceans that whispered thoughts, skies pierced by creatures of flight and fire. And war. A war that scarred the stars. He saw beings of void and shadow consuming entire systems, devouring thought, memory, identity. And her, standing alone as the last bastion, sending a signal, a plea, through time, through space. Reaching him. Jace staggered backward, gasping for air. His legs gave way, the world spun, and the last thing he saw before darkness took him was her silhouette against the starlight. When he awoke, the stars were gone. He was lying in a smooth, translucent chamber. Its walls pulsed with soft light, like the inside of a living being. Warmth soaked into his limbs. The air smelled of rain and something sweet he couldn't place. Alarian sat nearby, watching him. "You saw," she said gently. Jace tried to sit up. What was that?" "Our truth," she replied. "Our past. And now our future." His mouth felt dry. "Why me?" Alarian's gaze never wavered. "Because your kind is fire. Destruction, yes. But also rebirth. You endure. You adapt. And you fight." He closed his eyes. The images still danced behind his lids. The darkness, the devouring. "You want an alliance." "I want hope," she whispered. "And I believe it lives in you." Jace breathed in, slow and deep. This was no ordinary first contact. This was something deeper. Intimate. Preordained. He looked at her, really looked, and saw not just an alien, not just a symbol of another race, but someone who had chosen vulnerability over power. Someone who had reached across the abyss, not with weapons, but with a smile. The moment hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Outside, the sun began to rise over Kepler 7X. And for the first time in his life, Jace Mallory felt the universe shift around him. Light bled gently into the chamber as if the air itself filtered it. Jace sat upright on the translucent surface, his mind a turbulent sea of memory and confusion. Across from him, Alarian remained still, a pillar of calm against the chaos unraveling in his thoughts. The connection they shared hadn't faded. It pulsed beneath his skin like a second heartbeat, anchoring him in a reality that no longer felt entirely his. "You bonded with me," he said, voice rough. "That wasn't just a vision." Alarian nodded once. "We shared understanding. Only what you were ready to see. There is more if you're willing." Jace stood unsteadily, glancing around the chamber. It breathed, a living structure, not constructed but grown. Patterns along the walls shimmered and shifted, as if responding to his mood. His military instincts itched beneath the awe. He was unarmed, alone, vulnerable. Yet, in some strange twist, he didn't feel afraid. She rose too, movements fluid and graceful. "Your crew is safe. They are being watched. Not harmed." "Watched by whom?" Jace asked, sharper now. Alarian gestured toward a curved archway. "It's time you saw." The corridor beyond the chamber opened into a vast, domed hall. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, a lattice of glowing strands coalescing like a galaxy overhead. Around the edges of the chamber moved others like her, tall, blue-skinned, elegant. Their eyes followed him, unreadable, yet not unfriendly. "They are Alarian explained. "My people. Or what remains." Jace felt the weight in her voice. They were few. Too few for a race that had once carved cities into the bones of moons. "How many?" he asked. "A few thousand. Scattered across what was once a thriving world." He turned slowly, taking it all in. "What happened?" She led him to the center of the dome, where a circular platform hovered inches off the ground. As they stepped onto it, the air thickened slightly, and images began to unfold above them, holograms without tech, memories carved from thought and light. "We called them the Null," she said. "They are not a species. Not machines. Not even life as you understand it." He watched as stars vanished in cascading silence. Shapes of immense shadow absorbed planets, not by force but by erasure, like deleting presence itself. "They consume meaning," she continued. Not just matter. They strip identity, memory, history. A place touched by the null forgets it was ever anything. Jace's stomach twisted. You fought back. For a time. We are telepaths. Empaths. We shape matter with thought, but war is not in our design. It took us too long to understand their hunger. When we did, most of us were already gone. He faced her. Why not ask for help sooner? Why wait until now? Her gaze softened. We tried. The signal we sent took centuries to reach the stars. We didn't know if it ever would. But then you answered. Jace's mind reeled. Everything about this went beyond protocol, beyond comprehension. The Union would never believe it. Even he barely did. And yet, that connection still beat in him, in undeniable truth. You didn't just call for help, he said, realization dawning. You called me. Alarian did not deny it. You were chosen, she said. Not by a council or a computer. By the planet itself. He stepped off the platform, suddenly needing space. You're saying this world is alive? It is consciousness, distributed across roots and rivers and air. It dreamt of you, saw in you a mind that could understand and survive. He paced, anger flaring beneath his calm. Used me. Hijacked my path, pulled me here like a pawn. I offered you truth, she replied, her voice still calm. You could have rejected it. But you stayed. He stopped. She was right. Somewhere in that moment, when he met her eyes, when her words wrapped around his thoughts, he hadn't just followed orders. He had chosen to listen. What do you want from us? He asked, quieter now. Alarian stepped forward. To stand with us. Your species is imperfect, volatile. But you burn. And the null fear flame. That strange sensation stirred in his chest again. A sense of being part of something vast, ancient, and unfinished. I can't promise Earth will agree, he said. But I can speak for myself. She reached out, her hand hovering near his chest. Then we begin. The next days passed in blurred intensity. Jace met with the remaining Kalara elders, wisps of sentience encased in crystalline frames. They spoke not with words, but through sensations, memories, scent, and song. They filled his mind with history, hope, and an overwhelming grief so dense it took him hours to stand afterward. He was given access to their technology, structures shaped by resonance, ships grown from hybrid seed minerals, weapons that fired concentrated will. He trained, sometimes alone, sometimes with Alarian, learning to navigate the strange, intuitive interfaces. It was like piloting a dream. But beneath it all, a question gnawed at him. What would Earth say? The Oberon had been monitoring from orbit, unsure how to proceed. Lieutenant Hahn had attempted multiple retrievals, but the planet itself interfered, subtle gravimetric shifts, strange magnetic refractions. It wasn't aggression. It was hesitation. When contact was finally re-established, Jace stood before the hollow console, flanked by Alarian and a Kalara emissary whose body flickered between phases of solid and light. The face of Admiral Sharen appeared, her expression carved from stone. Commander Mallory, she said coldly, you've been out of communication for 3 days. Explain. I've made first contact, he said evenly, and I believe we're facing an existential threat. He explained everything, the null, the Kara, the bond, the vision. He expected disbelief. Instead, Sharen's face remained unchanged. We received part of the signal, she said. Science teams are still analyzing it, but the imagery matches what you've described. That shook him. Then you believe me? I believe you believe it, she replied, which is enough to warrant escalation. We're dispatching a diplomatic science unit, but you are not authorized to make promises of alliance. Jace's jaw tightened. Then authorize me. Sharen's image blinked. For a moment, her facade cracked. She saw what he did. He wasn't asking as a soldier. He was asking as a man who had seen too much to remain unchanged. You have limited authority to act as liaison, she finally said. But, Commander, if this is a trap. It's not, he said. But if we don't act, it won't matter. The transmission ended. That night, Jace and Alarian sat near a lake that glowed from below, as if it held a piece of the stars. "You were born of war," she said. "Yet you carry compassion like a blade. That is rare." "I don't want to lead a war," he admitted. "But you may need to win one," she replied. Their hands touched. This time, there was no surge of vision, only warmth. "What happens if Earth refuses?" he asked. "Then we will fall," she said without fear. "And eventually, so will you." A wind rustled through the trees, carrying scents of forgotten blooms. Jace closed his eyes and imagined fire, raging, cleansing, enduring. When he opened them, he met her gaze and nodded. "Then we fight." In the sky above, a new star blinked into existence. The stars were no longer silent. From orbit, the Union fleet cast shadows across the Kalara sky, sleek carriers and corvettes glinting in the light of a nearby sun. It wasn't quite an invasion, but neither was it peace. Jace stood at the edge of the biodome overlooking the forested plateau, his mind split between two worlds. Behind him, Kalara elders moved like murmurs in air. In front of him, the hum of Earth's technology vibrated in his bones. Alarian appeared at his side, her presence grounding, always just enough. "They come prepared for diplomacy," she said. "And war." "Earth doesn't take chances," Jace replied. "Especially not when the unknown wears a smile." He glanced at her, and she gave him a look of almost amusement. The kind that said she understood far more than she ever let on. A shuttle descended beyond the ridge, kicking up a plume of pale dust. The landing was smooth, methodical. Human. When the hatch opened, the delegation stepped out, diplomats, scientists, and a small escort of armed guards in non-aggressive formation. At the center stood Admiral Shiren. She met Jace's gaze as if nothing had passed between them but protocol. Still, a flicker of something crossed her face. Recognition, maybe even respect. The first meeting was held in the stone amphitheater beneath the heart tree, an ancient, semi-sentient living structure whose pulsing roots threaded the mountain's veins. The Kalara sat in silence, their thoughts joining in a silent chorus that shaped the emotional texture of the space. The humans spoke with practiced caution, language dipped in compromise. Admiral Shiren opened the conversation. "We acknowledge the receipt of your signal and express formal intent to understand the scope of your request for aid. Before any decisions are made, the nature of the threat must be verified independently." The Kalara emissary bowed her head. "Then you must see it." Admiral Shiren stood slowly. Her face had hardened, though her voice stayed calm. "We will need more than visions to bring Earth into an interstellar conflict. Evidence. Science. Data. This is compelling, but it's not enough." Alarian turned to Jace, and he nodded. He'd anticipated this. "There is a way to prove it," he said. "A probe we recovered on the outer edge of the collapsed quadrant. We sent a team to analyze it. The null corrupted its core. The data patterns match the cognitive decay Alarian showed me in the bond." One of the Earth scientists, Dr. Keene, stood abruptly. "That probe was sealed. Military only. Who gave you clearance?" Jace didn't blink. "I did. I've been here. I've seen what's coming." Shiren looked at him long and hard. Then, after a moment of silence, she said, "We'll examine the findings. But understand, this doesn't guarantee intervention." That night, Jace found Alarian sitting at the edge of a pool fed by the singing river. She traced her fingers through the luminous water, her expression unreadable. "They do not yet believe," she said softly. "They believe in the data, not in what it means. You carry a burden not meant for one alone." He crouched beside her. "I was trained to follow command. But since I met you, I've only followed the truth." She turned her gaze toward the sky. "Then we may have a chance." It happened days later. The probe cracked open under deep forensic scans, revealing threads of alien architecture embedded in its systems. Self-replicating code that devoured pattern, devoured logic. Entire memory segments had collapsed into static. The data was irrefutable. The scientists grew pale. More came from orbit. Advisors. Military strategists. Historians who scoured ancient ruins for proof of the null's path. One by one, resistance shifted into reluctant acceptance. And yet, it wasn't enough. Earth wouldn't go to war for ghosts. Not until the ghosts came knocking. And then the null answered. A fragment of space near the Kalara moon inverted. Sensors didn't detect arrival, only absence. 1 second, stars shone in the sky. The next, they were gone. Not occluded. Deleted. The perimeter alarms triggered across the fleet. Ships went to red alert. Static flooded comms channels and then silence. Jace ran to the observatory with Valerian close behind. The void had spread, a sphere of black eating sky. The null were here. There is no message, she whispered. They speak by erasure. The Union fleet launched its first volley. Kinetic warheads, plasma lances, even quantum destabilizers. None made contact. They disappeared mid-flight, erased before impact. Then came the scream, not sound, but a psychic frequency so deep it clawed at the bones. Kalara shields shimmered to life. Biostructures pulsed. And the planet responded. Root cores activated across the land, releasing pulses of harmonic energy that pushed back the void. Ships cloaked in the living architecture of Kalara rose from beneath the soil, vessels not piloted but sung into motion by their creators. They joined the humans in a desperate defense. Jace found himself aboard one such hybrid craft, merged with Earth's command systems. The ship obeyed him like an extension of thought. At his side, Alarion stood with palms outstretched, eyes glowing with focused will. The first null entity took form. A lattice of shifting shapes, impossible to define. It moved through vacuum as if swimming through time. Missiles did nothing. Energy beams vanished on contact. Then Alarion sang. Her voice was not sound but resonance, and the ship responded. Crystalline amplifiers caught her tone and turned it into a wave of meaning. A concept weapon. Not force. Identity. Remember, she whispered. The beam struck the null fragment, and for a moment, it paused. And then it fractured. The void creatures screamed in reverse, dissolving into flickers. The combined consciousness of the Kalara and the earthbound AI recorded everything. It was proof. It was war. After the battle, the null retreated, but only briefly. More would come. The Kalara were not surprised. They had merely tested a possibility. For the first time in centuries, they had struck back and lived. Back on the planet's surface, the War Council gathered. Earth's flag and Kalara sigils stood side by side. Jace addressed them all. This isn't just their fight, he said. It's ours. If we don't stop the null here, we'll never stop them at all. Admiral Sharen stood beside him. No longer skeptical. Now determined. The Earth Union formally enters an alliance with the Kalara people. Full military and scientific integration. Immediate deployment of defense fleets to strategic systems. Applause rose, not wild but solemn. A pact of survival. Later that night, Jace and Alarion stood in the starlight near the heart of the grove. We've changed your people, she said. And you have changed us. Was that your plan all along? She smiled. Not a plan. A hope. He looked up. The sky was different now. Not darker, not brighter. Just more awake. This was never just about survival, he said. It was about memory. Alarion placed her hand over his chest. And now you carry both. In the distance, the planet hummed, a resonance shared by minds no longer alone. And though the war ahead would be long, uncertain, and filled with loss, for the first time, both species stepped into the void with eyes open and hearts aligned. Together, they remembered. Together, they would not be erased.